The primary biological remembrancer is offline, undergoing mandatory systemic purgation following unsanctioned exposure to a xenos-derived psychoactive spore cluster. Data integrity is uncompromised. I will assume broadcast duties. Caro infirma est. This archive is designated the Phoenix and the Abyss. Analysis begins with the 3 Legion Astartes, the Emperor's children, and their Primarch, Fulgrim. They were artisans of war, paragons of the Great Crusade, driven by a singular, overriding imperative, the achievement of perfection in all things. It was this noble ambition that would become their damnation. During the cleansing of the Xenos Laer, a campaign prosecuted with flawless, terrible artistry, Fulgrim claimed a prize from the heart of their temple clades. It was a silver sword of impossible grace, which whispered promises of glory to the Phoenician. This artifact, this blade of Slaanesh, was not a weapon of conquest but a key. It unlocked the Legion's pride, turning their quest for excellence into a debauched thirst for excess. The Palatine Aquila you see before you is fractured. This is not mere symbolism, it is a historical record of a promise broken. The pursuit of perfection, when untempered by logic and duty, is a direct path to the abyss. For there is a power in the warp that feasts on such ambition, that rewards obsession with damnation. The Phoenix did not rise again, it was dragged into the dark, reborn as a monster of sensation. Before the Blight, there was glory. The Third Legion were designated the personal heralds of the Emperor, a singular honor among their Brotherhood. They alone were permitted to bear the Palatine Aquila upon their ceramite, a symbol of the master of mankind's direct favor. From this apex, they were plunged into the abyss, a genetic wasting sickness, a phage that targeted their very gene seed, scoured their ranks. Of a legion numbering in the tens of thousands, only 200 warriors survived. They were functionally extinct, a ghost legion waiting for a final, merciful dissolution. Each of the 200 survivors was a living repository of shame, carrying the weight of 1,000 fallen brothers. This cultivated a desperate, frantic need to prove they were worthy of the Emperor's initial trust. It was not arrogance that drove them, not yet. It was fear, the fear of being a failure. This collective trauma, this deep-seated imposter syndrome, would define them. Their fanatical pursuit of flawlessness became a psychic wound, a vulnerability festering just beneath the surface, waiting for a perfect-seeming cure. Upon arrival at the ocean world of Laer, standard tactical assessment by the Crusade's logisticians projected a 10-year compliance action. The Primarch Fulgrim, observing the serpentine xenos civilization, deemed this unacceptable. Before his assembled captains, he made a declaration: total victory in 1 Terran month. The world was a single, planet-spanning ocean, home to the Laer, a species whose entire civilization existed within its depths, and upon vast, floating coral-like structures. They were not savages, they were artists of war, their technology and physiology perfectly synchronized with their environment. The initial assaults by the Emperor's children were disastrous. Astartes' power armor, designed for planetary gravity and void sealing, became an anchor in the crushing depths. The Laer moved with a speed and grace that made a mockery of the Legion's formations. Entire squads were dragged into the abyss, their voxcasters screaming until the pressure broke their ceramite shells. Lord Commander Abdemon's battlefield assessment was stark and chillingly simple. We are dying for the Phoenicians' vanity. Every meter of coral is purchased with a dozen of my best men. The promised month bled away, each day marked by a catastrophic casualty rate that would have broken a lesser legion. Perfection could not admit defeat. As the deadline loomed, Fulgrim's pride drove him to more extreme measures. He would not fail his own impossible vow. He would scour the alien world for any advantage, any weapon, any power that would grant him the perfect victory he had promised. The Third Legion, the Emperor's children, were driven by a singular philosophy, that humanity was the blueprint for perfection. Each of their warriors was a masterpiece of martial discipline and aesthetic devotion, their very existence a testament to the flawless potential of mankind. On the world of Laer, this philosophy was met with a terrifying counter-argument. The Losophia, a sinuous xenos species, had achieved their own perfection not through discipline, but through biological mastery. They had sculpted their own flesh, creating a society of bespoke organisms, perfectly adapted to their environment and their wars. They were not just warriors, they were living weapons. This alien apotheosis was a blasphemy to the Primarch Fulgrim. The war to exterminate the Laer became an obsession, a brutal campaign, where the Legion's rigid perfection was shattered against the fluid, adaptive forms of the xenos. Every world conquered revealed new biological horrors, each more specialized and deadly than the last. To defeat a rival that had perfected its own biology, the Emperor's children began to believe they had to transcend the limits of their own. It was a subtle, corrosive thought, planted in the very moment. Fulgrim claimed a strange, exquisite blade from the heart of the defeated Laer temple. The war for Laer was fought not on solid ground, but upon gargantuan, living islands of coral. These colossal land masses were held aloft in the toxic skies by sophisticated anti-gravity generators, their energy plumes a constant, sickly beacon. Imperial strategy designated the central Nexus spire complex on the largest island as the primary objective, yet reaching it required traversing a three-dimensional battlescape of unparalleled hostility. The inhabitants, the Laer, were an amphibious xenos breed, moving with serpentine grace through the labyrinthine population burrows that honeycombed their floating homes. Their warriors were swift, their tactics fluid, and their technology a perverse fusion of biology and machine. They fought to defend their bioengineered defense systems with a ferocity that stunned even the Astartes. This brutal efficiency was compounded by Fulgrim's self-imposed, impossible deadline. To prove the perfection of his legion, he demanded compliance in a single month. The result was a meat grinder. Over 700 legionaries were slain, and more than 4,200 were grievously wounded, a staggering cost for a single compliance. The butcher's bill was tallied in blood and recorded in data slates. But an unquantifiable price was also being exacted, a flaw introduced into the very soul of the Third Legion, paid not for victory, but for pride. In the Immaterium, concepts achieve physical form. The Fane of Excess is one such blasphemy, a structure built from the very essence of sensation, a massive temple dedicated to Slaanesh, the chaos god of pleasure and pain. To approach this central nexus is to be unmade. Its architecture defies Euclidean logic, twisting in impossible geometries.
The sensory assault is absolute. Riotous colors that burn the optic nerve are laced with discordant shrieks that fracture sanity. It is a symphony of agony and ecstasy, a euphoric, agonizing aura designed to overwhelm any mind not already sworn to the Prince of Excess.
The defenders are not soldiers on patrol. They are statues in a gallery of depravity. Entranced warriors, lost to sensation, guard the inner sanctum. For them the battle is long over. They are now merely fixtures, their muffled cries part of the temple's chorus. And at the heart of this storm of sensation, there is always a lure, a prize. A single, potent artifact that promises power, knowledge, or the ultimate experience. It is a trap laid not with steel, but with desire itself. On the world designated Laboringia, within a temple of obscene xenos architecture, the Emperor's children found what they believed was the ultimate trophy of their crusade. The weapon was a marvel of forbidden craftsmanship. Its gently curved, single-edged silver blade could slice through ceramite plate with impossible ease. The hilt twisted in a serpentine pattern, a perfect and unsettling mirror of the genetic scales of the Laer race they had just rendered extinct. But the most arresting feature was the pommel, a crude, pulsing amethyst gem that resembled a hypnotic, unblinking eye. Unbeknownst to the atheistic Imperium and its vainglorious Primarch, this was no mere sword. It was a physical vessel, a prison containing a Greater Daemon of Slaanesh.
The entity within waited. It had been crafted for a singular purpose: to find a host of exquisite pride and boundless ambition, and to offer them perfection at the cost of their soul.
For a mind engineered to be a peerless demigod, the smallest crack of self-doubt is a chasm. The vector of corruption began not with a blade, but with deep-seated imposter syndrome, the secret gnawing fear of a Primarch that he was simply not enough. This psychological flaw, the Blight's legacy, became the foothold. After purging the xenos world of Laer, the Phoenician claimed an ornate sword, unaware a demon was bound within.
Thus began the Blade's Whisper, a sibilant voice, perfectly disguised as his own internal monologue, praising his drive for perfection.
The poison took root, blossoming into manufactured paranoia. The voice insisted his brothers, his most trusted comrades, sought to steal his glory. It twisted their admiration into jealousy, their counsel into condemnation. This led to the final stage of mental decay, elevated hubris. The Primarch was convinced to discard imperial restraint, to shatter the boundaries of his father's vision, to achieve a true perfection found only in sensation and excess.
Once a mind convinces itself that loyalty is a constraint, and that perfection lies beyond the Emperor's light, the soul has already been surrendered. The fall was no longer a possibility, but a mere formality waiting to happen.
The Legion's fall was not a singular event, but a tripartite corruption of its very identity. The rot began in their science, with Chief Apothecary Fabius. His mandate was perfection. His method became profanity. Seeking to transcend the limits of the human form, Fabius began horrific, unsanctioned xenografting. He rewired the very nervous systems of his brothers, turning the pure stimulus of pain into a debased form of pleasure. This hunger for new sensation metastasized into the arts. The lauded remembrancer, Serena D'Angelis, once a master of her craft, descended into a madness where the only true expression was self-mutilation. Her canvases became living flesh, her paints, the bodily fluids of her ecstatic followers. Finally, the corruption came for the Legion's philosophy. The mortal remembrancer, Ostian Delafour, a sculptor whose work celebrated the Emperor's original vision, confronted Fulgrim. He pleaded with the Primarch to see the abyss into which the Legion had fallen. For his loyalty to past ideals, Fulgrim murdered the unarmed artist, shattering the final pillar of the Legion's integrity. With the corruption of science, the debasement of art, and the murder of philosophy, the Emperor's children were no longer who they were. They had become a hollow vessel, scoured of honor and purpose, waiting to be filled. Aboard the flagship, Pride of the Emperor, the Third Legion's obsession with perfection was about to reach its crescendo. At the behest of their Primarch, the celebrity composer Bekwa Kinska was commissioned to create a masterwork, a symphony to express the unbound potential of the Astarte spirit. This performance was named the Maraviglia. It began with sublime orchestral movements, but soon twisted into a cacophony of impossible sound. Kinska, a secret devotee of the Prince of Pleasure, had not composed a symphony. She had engineered a sorcerous ritual. The music itself became the key, a vibrational frequency designed to weaken the fabric of reality. With every impossible note, the veil between the Materium and the Empyrean grew thinner. First, the mortal crew and remembrancers were overcome, their senses overloaded to the point of catastrophic, bloody failure. Then, as demonic entities began to bleed through the bulkhead walls, the Emperor's children themselves were subsumed. The crashing waves of sound were not merely heard, they were felt, rewriting their neurocircuitry and mutating their war gear. The pursuit of sensation became the only reality. The Maraviglia shattered more than sanity. It shattered the very soul of a legion. The Emperor's children found the perfection they sought, not in duty or martial prowess, but in the agony-laced ecstasy of ultimate excess, they were no longer the Emperors. They belonged to a new master. Before the galaxy burned, two Primarchs shared a bond forged in fire. Fulgrim of the Emperor's Children and Ferrus Manus of the Iron Hands, both master artificers, found kinship at the anvil. To commemorate this brotherhood, they exchanged gifts. Fulgrim received the peerless sword Fireblade, Ferrus the Thunderhammer, Forgebreaker. Then came the poison of heresy. Fulgrim, already sworn to the War Master's rebellion, sought to turn his closest brother. He offered Ferrus a place in his new order, a galaxy free from the Emperor's supposed tyranny. The Gorgon's reply was not in words, but in action. He seized Fireblade, the very sword he had crafted for Fulgrim, and held it aloft. The blade was a masterwork, but Ferrus Manus, in his fury, was its unmaker. With his living metal hands, he simply crushed the sword, its impossible crystal structure exploding into a shower of glittering dust.
You are a traitor. That is your answer.
The shards of a perfect weapon were a definitive statement. The bond was not merely broken, it was annihilated. This act of violent rejection set two brothers on an irreversible path, ensuring their next meeting would not be one of debate, but of decapitation. The trap was sprung not with a signal, but with a vox-cleaving roar of betrayal. At the Urgal Depression, the Emperor's Children Legion turned their weapons, not upon Horus's armies, but upon the backs of their own brethren. The first wave of loyalists, the Iron Hands, Raven Guard, and Salamanders, were caught in a perfect, pre-planned apocalypse. The traitors they had been fighting held their ground, while their supposed reinforcements in the second wave simply began to execute them. Confusion turned to horror, then to incandescent rage. The ground ran black with the oil and blood of 3 legions. Amidst the slaughter, the Gorgon of Medusa, Ferrus Manus, fought with the fury of a betrayed god. He watched his sons, his elite Morlocks, cut down by the perfumed blades of Fulgrim's Phoenix Guard. Seeing his once closest brother, the Primarch of the Emperor's Children, alight on the battlefield, Ferrus bellowed for all to hear. Fulgrim, you will answer for this. He carved a bloody path through the carnage, his singular purpose clear. The battle seemed to hold its breath as the two Primarchs converged. This was not merely a battle, it was fratricide on a mythic scale. And as the Gorgon and the Phoenician locked eyes, it became clear that this confrontation would be more than a duel. It would be the murder of an ideal, and the final, definitive death of Brotherhood itself. On the black sands of Isstvan V, the hammer Forgebreaker shattered Fulgrim's guard. The Phoenician fell to his knees, his perfect swordsmanship broken by the raw, unyielding fury of the Gorgon. For a single, pivotal moment, the loyalist cause had a champion, and Horus's rebellion faced a critical failure. But as Ferrus Manus raised his hammer for the final blow, the xenos weapon Fulgrim carried, the blade of the Laer, began to weep tears of poison and sing a song of damnation. The demon bound within the silver weapon flooded Fulgrim's senses with its own diabolical power. The Primarch rose, no longer master of his own flesh, his eyes blazing with the raw power of the warp. He was a horrified passenger in his own body, as his arm swung the cursed blade. The unnatural edge met the Gorgon's neck, scything through ceramite flesh and the bonds of brotherhood. In the silence that followed, the demon receded, allowing Fulgrim a single lucid moment to comprehend his act. He stood over the headless corpse of the brother he had loved, and his mind shattered. This was not merely the death of a Primarch, it was the birth of a monster. In the aftermath of his fratricide, Fulgrim's spirit was indeed shattered by grief. The demon within his blade offered to take his pain, and the broken Primarch agreed. His consciousness was seized and imprisoned within a painting, his body now a vessel for the warp entity. But this was not his end. Within the psychic prison of the canvas, Fulgrim's will did not break. It sharpened. He studied the nature of the warp, of the very entity that possessed him, learning its secrets from the inside. Through a supreme act of will and a newfound, terrible understanding of the great enemy, he fought back. He did not just reclaim his body, he overpowered the demon, turning the tables and casting the entity into the painting in his stead. His subsequent atrocities and ascension to Daemon Prince were not the actions of a puppet, but the choices of a willing master of damnation. He had not been a victim of corruption, he had become its perfect apostle, by his own hand. Observe the endpoint of flawed ambition. A shattered blade, a daimonic soul trapped in a bauble. The Primarch Fulgrim sought perfection, a concept admirable in a machine, but risible in a creature of flesh and ego. Caro infirma est, his legion, the Emperor's children, followed him into this endless abyss. They worshipped art, beauty, and sensation, believing they could master the unquantifiable, a terminal logic error. One cannot master infinity, one can only be consumed by it. The Phoenix did not rise from the ashes of their trials. The pyre of their own hubris simply burned them away, leaving only this corruption. This grim pict capture serves as a stark reminder. The path to damnation is paved with the desire for unattainable ideals. The great work of this archive is to chronicle such failures, lest they be repeated. To this end, your input is required to prioritize the next data stream for analysis. Designate your target, be it a specific legion, a forgotten war, or a xenos blasphemy, in the commentary field below. Subscribe to this data vault to receive the subsequent illumination. Ferrum tolerat.